ask a question in the chat box if you'd rather do it that way. And we can answer them as we see them popping in. So does that make sense for everybody? And we'd also like to ask that everybody just stay on mute and then unmute yourselves as you ask your questions.
All right. I just wanted to let everybody know that the meeting is being recorded because people have asked that it be recorded so that if they missed it, they would be able to benefit from the advice. So I was supposed to let everybody know according to Josh. So now I've let everybody know.
Sounds great.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Dr. Lindsay Borovay. I see a lot of familiar names as I scroll down the list. I wish I could see everyone's faces. It's kind of, now I actually understand how John feels when he does a lot of these things, because you're kind of staring either at yourself or a screen. But it is nice to see that the people who have signed in are here, and thank you for coming. And thank you, OJCS, for inviting me and for letting me join in the conversation. I really want to keep this short. I don't have anything formally prepared because I really just see this as a conversation to have as parents and, and with some professionals in the community, so we can just talk about what some people are facing and what some people may be feeling, and we can talk about some tips and tricks and see what's working with some families, and possibly we can share some nice ideas. I can imagine that it's been a pretty hectic, how long has it been so far? A week and a half? It feels like a bit of an eternity on my end. I don't know how you guys feel. It's been quite, it was a very quick shift for us as a family and for me, but we're all kind of trying to find our feet. So I can definitely relate, I think, to what many families are feeling, being a working parent, having a husband who's working and having 3 little kids. So my kids are 3 under the age of 10, so they need a lot of hands-on help. So I can definitely understand the struggle that a lot of families are likely in right now. And how we as adults are feeling. It's not just that our kids are going through something. As parents and adults, we're actually going through a lot ourselves. So there's a lot of challenges with kind of managing and navigating how we feel emotionally and how we're weathering the storm, and then how we can model and be there for our kids while we're watching them go through these transitions and these changes themselves. So there's no playbook on this one, unfortunately. I mean, there's definitely some ideas and suggestions and things like that, but we're all kind of in this together and finding ways to navigate this. So I'm hoping that we can come together as a community and a supportive community so we can work through this together.
That's perfect. So I think that it would be great if people wanted to open it up to questions. If you have something on your mind or something that you're worried about, or if anybody wants to start us off, that would be great.
I'll start.
Okay.
What do you say to kids when they tell you that this isn't fair and they miss their friends and they miss school, and you keep telling them that you understand, but that isn't enough? And the question keeps coming up, well, when is this going to be over? Because any answer I give just doesn't seem to be the right one.
It's hard when we don't have, a lot of times when kids are anxious about things or they're upset about things, as parents, we know there's going to be an end point. If someone's upset and doesn't want to go to swimming lessons, we know that once we get them through that 45-minute class, it's over. And that's not the situation we're in right now. So I cannot definitely understand, Eliana, like the question, because we don't know how long this is going to go on for. So there's a lot of uncertainty about the situation we're all in. So it's hard to give our kids definitive answers about things when we ourselves don't really know. I think it's important to recognize where your kids are at and really try and understand their experience, that this is as frustrating as it is for us. I mean, their world has been changed and turned upside down too, and they're not being able to have their daily outlets by being with friends just the same as we are. And I think it's important to first recognize and validate what it's like for them, that it is really frustrating and it is hard when we're missing our friends, and to really just be able to sit with that experience with them, because we can't necessarily say, but on Friday you're going to go and see a friend. That's not what we can offer them right now. So I think it's important to support them through that, and then to try and problem solve with them. So what are ways, how can we connect in this funny time? What are ways that we can do where you can still feel supported and you can still see your friends, or to go do, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's through chatting online, the way kind of how we're doing it. we've had some friends kind of drive by in their car and through their car, and we're on the porch, we're having conversation. So we're definitely social distancing, but our kids can at least see their friends' faces and things like that. So there's ways to try and kind of problem solve with them. And in recognizing that there is no, as much as it's how long is this going to go on for, we don't have that answer. And so it's really looking at one day at a time. So what are things we can do daily where we can give them the outlets that they need and they want, and without always kind of focusing on when does it end? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And I think it's different for different age groups, right? It depends how old your kids are and how old everyone's kids are. So kids missing friends as teenagers is very different than a 5-year-old missing his friends. And, how we're going to negotiate that is going to be different in terms of, teenagers are going to have more access to social media, and they might want more time on their own to be with their friends on that through those platforms. And with a 5-year-old, we're going to have to be more involved to find ways to let them have those virtual social outlets with others their age. And people may not necessarily have specific questions, but I'm also just happy to talk about, I can just keep talking if you guys just want me to talk, but people just might have some topics that they're curious to hear a bit about, if it's about kind of anxiety, if it's about managing, how do I kind of manage working and being a parent and a teacher now, because now we're wearing a lot of different hats. And I think I can definitely say this with certainty and with my own experience. I have always appreciated our teachers, but I definitely have a newfound appreciation to see what it's like on that side of things. We're wearing a lot of different hats right now. So what that experience is like, and it's hard for our kids too, because we kind of switch in and out of being a teacher in 1 minute and then being this parent to them in another. And so, I think it's confused. It's not necessarily so confusing, but it definitely changes the relationship a bit depending on what time of day it is and what the expectations are.
And I'm really here to talk about that sort of aspect of things too. So if you're really having a hard time navigating the new school at home platform, we can talk about what that means. We can talk about some different expectations of what your role really is in all of that. And what Lindsay was saying about it's really hard to be sometimes the teacher and sometimes the mom. From the school's point of view, we really want you to be the mom or the dad and the parent and the caregiver. That's our number one concern for you. And that's our number one hope for you, that from the school's point of view, we're doing the schooling and we're doing the teaching and we're doing the school. And we're asking parents to support that, of course, but we're not asking you to homeschool your children, and we're not asking you to be their teachers. And that's really, really challenging and difficult, because you feel like you have to be their teachers because you're the one sitting beside them. And so I'm happy to have that conversation with people that are having that concern as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Yuli, you have a question?
Yuli is my daughter. I'm Elena.
Hi. Oh, sorry. I'm just looking at the
I think my question is, I'll start with something very technical, what might seem, but okay. I'm struggling with this kind of decision. On one end, when they are sitting in front of the computer, one will say, okay, they need a quiet place, they need, they are working, they're learning, right? They're sitting with their teacher. On the other hand, it seems like I need to always monitor what's going on. Like my Yuli is 7 years old. If I'm not monitoring, if I'm not hands-on on what she needs to do in a certain time, I often find her just watching YouTube. Watching dogs, and she's so happy, and then she's quiet. And so, on one hand, she needs the quiet. On the other hand, I need to monitor her. That means she needs to be sitting somewhere very close to me. Then it's not quiet anymore because I'm trying to work and to watch my almost 4 years old. And so I'm trying to find this, what would be an ideal setting when you are working from home, have multiple kids around, and they need to do schooling.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really good question. So I think that it needs to be a combination of a few different things. Um, when your child is on a live experience with a teacher, I think that being in a quiet space and letting them be in that environment with their class and their teacher is a good time for you to kind of step away and not be around to monitor. And you set up the expectation that she's in a live experience with the teacher. And that usually lasts for a bit of time before the teacher sets them to task. When the teacher sets them to task, often there's an opportunity for the kids to stay on with the teacher and get questions asked. So it's possible that you can still sort of be on the side, and the child, Yuli, can still be engaged doing her work with the teacher. And then, of course, checking in and just making sure that she's on the right track and that she's doing what she needs to be doing is great. But I love the idea of giving her that quiet space and then setting up that expectation, like for the next 20 minutes, you're on the live session with your teacher. You can even set a timer if you think that that'll help her stay engaged and focused for a certain amount of time. But I think sort of helping her become more independent is really key. I want to just remind everyone that we've been at this for only 6 days. And although it seems like eternity, this is a really new skill for everybody. It's a new skill for teachers. It's a definite new skill for students. And just because they haven't found their way yet, or they're not confident yet, doesn't mean that they won't be. Hopefully we'll be back in the classroom sooner rather than later, but from what it's looking like, this is going to be our new norm for a while. And so having them practice and feel comfortable in a new environment is always something that takes a little bit of time. And so I don't want people to feel anxious or nervous that their children aren't completely independent yet, because they'll get there and we'll keep practicing. And
I think just to, Sharon, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, sorry, it froze on my end. I wasn't sure if it was me or you. The other end. And I think also just to piggyback on that, I find sometimes, especially with younger kids, it's helpful to first kind of do the first, if there's paperwork or, individual work that the kids are being asked to do, to get them engaged in the activity with support. And then once they're engaged, it's okay to kind of step back and start doing what you need to do. Sometimes kids don't know how to get started. And so they start going on YouTube or they start doing other things because they don't, either it's a lot of mental effort to kind of sit down and really try and get into a new activity or piece of work. But if we can help them with the first problem set or the first kind of to get them going on things, typically once they're engaged, they're going to be a bit more successful at being able to work independently for a set period of time. So especially with Yuli, who's younger, it might be helpful. I mean, it's hard for us to be working at the same time. I totally understand that because I have a few little ones at home too. But I do find that if I can get them going on the task, I can help them through the first question and get them set up to go. They can then become a bit more independent for a chunk piece of time. So that strategy may also be helpful.
I want to address, Michael, your question about having trouble getting kids outside and that they're really glued to their screens. And so the school is also paying really close attention to that. And we're working now towards implementing phase 2, which is coming after the Passover break. And we're trying to think about rejigging the schedule and what makes most sense. One of the things that we're really urging, and this will continue to be communicated outward, when students are on their live chats, they're obviously in front of their computer, and we want that to continue. And that's a really important engagement piece for their social well-being and connecting with their friends and seeing their teacher. But we also want to really ensure that when they're not required to be in front of a screen, that their screens are actually being closed. And we're going to be, I think, a little bit more explicit in the next round, phase 2 coming, with more time to disconnect from the computer, and whether that's working independently on a project, but like also highlighting that there are break times, and during those break times that the screens get closed. And it can be a rule you can set within your house. You can help outline on the schedule. You can even highlight when screens are just not allowed. And you're allowed as a parent to set those boundaries and expectations to say, these are the times when you're allowed to be on your computer and when you should be on your computer. And then these are the times where the computer must be closed and it's just not available to them at that time, where they're outside playing and having gym, or they're playing a board game or engaging in another way other than a computer screen. So I think that setting those expectations and boundaries within your family is also really important. Yeah, I'm just reading it's about.
Yeah, too. Sweet. I'm just sorry. I'm catching up on everyone's. It definitely is challenging with YouTube because videos do start automatically once one video ends. So I can definitely see that being a challenge. I think part of it is speaking to setting expectations. Because it is something that kids are going to have to learn to navigate if we're going to use, different platforms and different, YouTube and different links to different sites and things like that, about what the expectation is when after you watch a video, what is the next thing we need to be doing? And I certainly would provide a lot of positive feedback when your kids do stop the video and then get back to their schedule or whatever it is they have to do. I certainly would be reinforcing that type of behavior with them, and because it's like Sharon was kind of saying, they're learning to become more independent learners, and that's one of the skills that kids in this platform, in this way of learning, are going to have to learn to navigate. So I'm catching up.
Yeah, so teachers are really trying. I'm looking at your comment about phase science activity and the baking, and we're trying, the teachers are just, we're blown away at the commitment of the teachers and how hard everybody's working to try and really be mindful of different kinds of activities. We've got a library program up and running. We have an art program up and running. We have a gym program up and running. And so I'm really encouraging families as well to look at all those resources that are available. So there's the daily schedule, and we're also mindful that not everybody's going to be able to follow the schedule and the exact timing as it's outlined on the schedule. And we're hoping that parents know that they can be flexible and change things around to fit their family's needs and to do things at different times. But a lot of the schedules underneath have an idea bank of what to do when finished, or other ideas they can be working on. And so I encourage you to look beyond just the regular schedule and try to find ways in the kitchen and in science and in baking to engage kids, because that's all learning and that all counts as part of what we're trying to do as the school. So be really creative with the schedule, and trying to go beyond just what is provided is a great way. And teachers are trying to expand that view to do all kinds of different activities for the kids.
I think there's a question about siblings and getting along and everyone feeling kind of cooped up right now. I think that, on the one hand, not that I would ever say that this is an optimal situation, but if we have to find the silver linings, that I do think there are many opportunities for growth and learning and connection that's coming out of this as families, in terms of everyone's starting to spend more time together. It's an opportunity to be more connected. It certainly is an opportunity to slow down and kind of focus on family time, because that's what's in front of us, and that's kind of what's available and what we should be focusing on right now. That's the most important thing. But with that does come, the feeling of people not necessarily having the space that they used to have. I mean, parents, we used to go to work and we had a bit of an outlet from being at work and not being with kids, and kids had their outlet being with their friends at school and not necessarily being at home with their parents every minute of the day. So definitely, although there's a lot of opportunities, there's also going to be a lot more moments of, people feeling a bit cooped up and in close quarters. And I think it's important that everyone finds different outlets and different ways to get their own space, because everyone still needs their downtime and their, if it's going outside for walks and getting out and doing things. Obviously for little kids, they can't necessarily do things as independently as the older ones. But I think that if everyone can kind of have their own outlets and their own space, it's going to reduce a lot of the fighting and being on top of each other all the time. I think that's important. I think regular exercise is really important. We need to kind of get those endorphins going. And a lot of kids have a lot of pent up energy, especially if they're sitting at a desk all day and they don't have the regular movement that goes on within a classroom setting. It's just kind of adding another element of them starting to take it out on each other with their siblings. So I think that definitely making sure there's adequate breaks and physical activity throughout the day is really important. I think eating regularly and having healthy and nutritious snacks is really important too, because when blood sugar goes down, our moods tend to go with it. And we also become a bit more nudgy and irritable. So I think that kind of maintaining that consistent schedule and the routine is very important. And I think that in terms of, the kids, it's the kids who have siblings with them, in a sense that those are going to be their playmates right now. So definitely focusing on the positive family time and engaging them in structured or semi-structured activities where it's a lot more cooperative types of play can certainly help. And also recognize it. I think it's also kind of meeting kids with where they're at and recognizing that a lot of the bickering and the fighting that's going on is their own adjustment to what's going on and their own frustration that they're experiencing. And certainly they're going to take it out with each other. But, I think it's also naming it for them. What they're going through can be tough. And that's kind of the presenting behavior might be through the siblings fighting and stuff. If there's a lot of kind of rivalry in terms of schoolwork and that type of competition going on, I think that certainly you can move kids if it's possible to different areas of a room or of a house, so everyone kind of gets their own separate learning space, so they're not kind of overlooking each other and comparing what each other are doing in that way. And really emphasizing what each person is doing and the learning that they're doing individually being really important, and not comparing them obviously to one another will help produce that as well.
I wrote a blog post yesterday. So if you look on the OJCS blogosphere, the special needs section has a blog as well. And one of the things that I was saying on the blog yesterday, and reiterating what Lindsay is saying, is about having regular exercise and I was suggesting that everyone sort of the night before put little healthy snacks in containers in the fridge so that kids can grab them along the way during the day as they need it. But also sleep is a big is another component where it feels like we're kind of on vacation mode and we're not really in school mode anymore, but we are, and we're trying to keep that. That's one of the big reasons why we've tried to set the schedule up the way it is, and that school starts when it normally does in the morning and ends when it normally does at the end of the day, because we want kids to feel like that sense of routine and familiarity and what they're accustomed to. But that also goes along with a regular bedtime. And so I'd really encourage you to keep your bedtime routines as they were when you were in school, because we want kids to be well rested. We know that that's going to bring a higher level of concentration and being in better moods and just being able to tolerate the stressors that are coming along with this. So we're also encouraging that routine in bedtime as well.
I've heard about these mighty microworks going around the school. I think that's amazing. We're definitely going to look at those as a family.
I'm so impressed with Micah's leadership and that he just took that on himself. It just warmed my heart, and his grade 2 class is just loving it. And it's such and that I would really encourage you guys to find ways to help your kids shine in those ways. So for those of you that don't know, Micah in grade 2 just decided to do Mighty Micah workout videos, and every day he's posting ways to move your body. And so he just did that on his own initiative, and it's a place where he can shine. And I would encourage your kids, if they play an instrument or if they made a really cool craft or if they've done an interesting activity that they think that their friends would be interested in doing as well, I'd encourage them to use the school platform to share those wonderful activities that they're engaging in, so that everybody can benefit from what everybody else is doing at home and feel really proud of their unique skills that wouldn't necessarily pop up in the classroom. Any other questions or things that people want to talk about?
I guess I have a question.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, John here. You know what? One question I had is, first of all, I wanted to say that the Google Meets, etc., it's working quite well. So we're really happy with it most of the time. And I find that the schedule, even as a parent, it can be, I'm always like, I've printed it out and trying to follow. It is a lot of switching sometimes, and they produce that. But one of my concerns is, they'll miss an assignment. They won't, something will be expected, and they'll kind of miss out on it. And that's what I often worry about in real life too. So are the teachers kind of checking back as well in the lower grades at least, so those grade 2 and 3 I'm talking about, whether, the child has remembered that assignment, that's due, some of these are due further out, following week or something.
Yeah.
Are they doing that?
Yeah, what a great question. So yes, teachers are definitely checking in with students and making sure that they're on top of what they need to do. And there's all different kinds of ways that teachers are asking for students to demonstrate their learning. That's going to be coming in all different kinds of ways. And teachers are definitely collecting what they've asked to be due, reminding students when things aren't being handed in. But we also are giving everybody a lot of opportunity and flexibility to hand things in when they're ready to hand things in. And we need to be really mindful and sort of shift our intensity around making sure that everything is due and everything gets done and everything gets handed in. We want that, and we're going to continue to encourage kids to do their very best, but we also don't want to increase anxiety, and we don't want kids feeling overly stressed, and we don't want parents feeling stressed about whether or not their children are or not handing things in, because that's the teacher's job and they will be checking back in. What I'm working on sort of behind the scenes right now is creating some executive functioning tools for kids that are having difficulty keeping track of everything they have to do. So like some parents find it hard to sort of go through the schedule and see what everything needs to get done. We're working on creating sort of a to-do list where it's a one sheet where kids can click on when they've accomplished different tasks to sort of keep a running tally of what all the different teachers have assigned. So that's coming, it's in the works. We're definitely aware that for some kids, the executive functioning piece is more challenging than it is for others, that some are finding it hard to keep track of everything that's due. And so we're definitely paying attention to that. And we want parents to not feel really worried if they feel like their kids are falling behind. I'd like you to mention it to your teachers and engage that conversation with them so that they're aware that you're worried or you don't think that they're keeping up. But we as a school are helping families navigate that if they're running into trouble. Because we really want kids to be happy and engaged and wanting to learn. That's our most important criteria right now. Does that help answer your question? Thumbs up.
I think also, and I think, Sharon and you and I have had this conversation, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I do, from my understanding of kind of the school's perspective, is that not every child can follow the daily schedule the way it's been posted. And I don't think that that's the school's expectation. Obviously, it's there as a guideline, and they're hoping that kids can go through it, or they'll at least check in for those live touch points. But there are some kids who might need a softer schedule, or who, you know, they need a bit more autonomy in choosing what they're going to do and when. And that I think there is room, to have the conversation with those teachers, with your child's teachers, but there's room to give kids some of that autonomy, because I think they need that. To help design the day, there's still expectations of what needs to get done, but they can also have a say in chunking up their day and their time, so that when they are expected to be learning, or when they're choosing to have that learning block, that they're focused and engaged. That is correct, for sure. I'm looking at the next comment that's coming in, Eliana, about the dysfunctional use of the chat function. So we've actually improved. Well, Google Meet has actually improved this situation for us, because a lot of schools are finding themselves in this similar situation where students were kicking other students off Meet and muting other students, and nobody was doing it maliciously or trying to be mean, but there was definitely that sort of playing around, childish kind of instigating happening. And so Google actually responded to the multitude of complaints that many schools were clearly sharing. And so now only the person who creates the meeting can moderate that way. And so only the teacher is going to be able to mute a student, which has been great for classroom management. In terms of the chat box, where the teachers are trying really hard to set up new habits and new expectations, and to help highlight to students what's appropriate and what's not, encouraging the HU for hands up. Sometimes they let the silliness carry on if it's not disrupting the learning of others. But if it is, then the teacher is definitely paying attention to it and calling the whole class out on it, and encouraging kids to be using the chat function appropriately. As a parent, if you happen to be near your child and you see that your child is engaging in inappropriate chatter, I would definitely be encouraging them to not, just like you would encourage them in a regular classroom to be mindful and appropriate and respectful of a classroom environment. That is a classroom environment. That's their new classroom. And so if they wouldn't be saying those kinds of things in front of the whole class, and they shouldn't be typing those things in the chat box. We had a grade kindergarten student find his way to the chat box today, and was thrilled to find the emoji button, and was filling the screen with poops. And so the kindergarten teacher had a little chuckle, and then reminded the class that we're going to use the chat button for appropriate ways to communicate, and HU means hands up, and we shouldn't be filling the chat box with emojis and poops. So just like they would address it in the classroom, teachers are trying to address those kinds of new behaviors that kids are testing the waters. And, you know, we're happy that kids are testing the waters in that way, and that we're teaching them that there's still a decorum and a protocol and a way to behave in this new classroom environment. And it comes with, you know, reminders and practice, and keeping everybody, you know, engaged that way. Sari, you have a question. Any suggestions for keeping 3 kids happy during a 3-day? Yeah, to first the bat. Yes, and we're about to face a 2-week Passover break, which we are well aware is going to, for some families, be wonderful to just like unplug and just be free. And for other families, we are acutely aware that that's going to be a real challenge with another transition. And I know that some families are feeling really anxious about what that's going to look and feel like. My suggestion for that, and
Dr. Bort, Lindsay, you can jump in and offer some other tips, but my suggestion for that is that you still hold a framework to your day. We don't want kids to be, structure throughout the whole day, but I want kids to have a sense of a structure throughout their day, even when they're not in school. And so to go through in the morning and have like a family meeting around breakfast, a special breakfast that's been made or something to start off your day as a family unit and kind of go through what the expectations are for the day. And I invite you at the beginning of that long break to engage the kids in activities and things that they are passionate about and really want to do and explore, and help create a list with your kids about all kinds of different activities that you want to do together as a family. Whether that's starting a really big puzzle, or whether that's, learning how to bake, or whether that's doing science experiments, or going on Amazon and finding a new board game that you can buy for your family to play. So there's different ways that you can help kids be part of that and get them excited about what this is going to look like, and try and build somewhat of a framework that your family can rely on, because I think the hardest part is the uncertainty of what are we going to do today, and nobody really knowing what that's going to look or feel like in the transition can be really hard.
I think those are really good suggestions, Sharon, and I definitely would agree. I think also, so maintaining some sort of degree of consistency is very helpful, like Sharon was mentioning. And I think that, another piece of it is that everyone is going to have some downtime on their own. And sometimes kids don't know what to do when they're on their own. And it may even be helpful to create a list or put a box together of different activities that kids can engage in when it's kind of that downtime or alone time, and they have to kind of, occupy their time. So quiet activities or independent activities that they enjoy. But I think that planning for that upcoming break and that period of time off is going to be very helpful. So again, as a family, coming up with different experiences that everyone would like to do and kind of loosely plugging it into a bit of a schedule, so you kind of know what's coming next, or there's things that kids can look forward to. There's also different strategies just to try and increase more kind of camaraderie within the home. So one thing we've been using in our house that I find actually is works quite well is having a joy jar. And I know that there are some families on this list that have kind of implemented that too. And really what it is just if you catch someone doing something joyful, if you catch someone doing something kind for someone else or something nice, that they get to put a pom-pom in the jar. And it has to be nominated by somebody else in the family. So I can't just do something nice and say, I just did something nice, so I get to put in the jar. We all start to look for the good in other people. So we're, and when the jar fills up, then as a family, we get to choose to do some fun, special activity. So if you are going to do something like that, I wouldn't pick a jar that's too big. To start, you want to get the reward sooner than later so kids really can buy into it, but you also don't want it too small that within like 5 acts of kindness it's completed. But I do think that kind of implementing those types of family, I guess at this point in my family, is a bit of a tradition. We just kind of keep going with it. It's really nice because as we're spending time together, you'll hear someone pipe up, joy jar, you get a pom-pom because someone is being really kind for somebody else. And, that's not necessarily going to help with the downtime and the monotony of not having much planned, but it certainly can help the milieu. And I think that if we can set our mindset in the right place, and we're looking for the good things in others, and we're looking for moments where we can connect together in positive ways through board games and going on family walks together, and maybe everyone's going to decide to learn a new skill together or do something, a project together or something that's collaborative, an art project or something like that, that you're not only are you passing the time in a positive way, but you're really cultivating a close connection with your family. And that makes the time go by quicker, and it makes it a lot more pleasant for everybody and pleasurable.
We're also doing something, I have older kids, I have teenagers, but we're trying to do like an evening activity as well, so that we're something to look forward to at the end of the day. So one night we did a taste test. So the kids found 10 items that they wanted my husband and I to taste, and we were blindfolded and we had to taste them and try and guess what it was. And then my husband and I did the same for the kids. And so we sort of had a competition about who could guess what we were tasting. So if you can think about sort of fun and different activities that you can do sort of and call it like evening activity, and who's going to plan tomorrow's evening activity, it's kind of a nice way to get families also engaged in doing things that you would never think of doing on a normal evening. Like, I would never have thought of doing a blind taste test on a normal evening, but it was a fun thing to do. And so we're trying to sort of think about different ways to engage as as a family unit as well.
It's digging into everyone's, if you've had them, your camp experiences. What are
your Poulet Arabs?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And Elia and I like what you guys did. I guess it was last Shabbat, with someone being the chazan and leading the tefillas together. So definitely, you're, being creative in making these moments as they're going by. You guys are definitely bringing the creativity in, which builds the memories. And I think we're all going to have memories of this period of time, no matter what. But let's try and, make them as fun as possible, for sure.
I have a friend who's a doctor in Montreal. She actually posted what she posted. She posted something on Facebook, which was very interesting. And her point was, there are many negatives to what's going on right now, but this is also a very unique opportunity. So if you can somehow get past the negative and realize that never again in your children's lives will you have this much undivided time with them, where you don't have other places to be, nobody has anything else to do. And as hard as it is, it's also a very unique opportunity. So she's like, look at all these things. And she had a list of all these things that she'd always wanted to do with her kids and never been able to. And like, now they're able to make that photo album together. And now they're able to finish that puzzle together. And now they're able, and it actually gave me like an interesting perspective when I read this post. Because I mean, she's a doctor and she's on the front lines and she's working pretty hard, but when she's not, and her husband's at home now with them, like it was a very interesting post to read.
Yeah. I think that there will be a lot of lessons learned from this experience coming out of this. And I think for the most part, I mean, not every family is the same, but this can really bring a lot of families closer together. And I think that our priorities are likely going to shift to some degree, even when life does resume normalcy, whenever that is and however that looks. I think this experience can really have a deep impact on how we choose to live our life after this whole experience. Because you're right that we often don't have the time. We often are busy with our meetings and we're busy with our work, and we're telling our kids, not now, we can't do things right now. And, it's a lot of opportunities lost. And now we do have the time. We're forced to be home. And there's one Facebook group, it's something like surviving the COVID virus or keeping sane during it or something I was seeing. And someone actually asked a question to the group just saying, what positive thing has come out of it for you? And I was just skimming through all of the comments, and every comment had to do with, I'm actually enjoying my kids a lot more. We're making healthier meals. We're enjoying meals so much more. We're actually like planning a full, like everyone's really cooking a lot more now, and they're cooking together. And so a lot of positive things are coming out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also like it kind of puts the school part of it into perspective, and we really want you to eliminate those battles. And so if you're feeling like you're yelling at your kids all day long about what they're doing through the school platform, we really want you to take a step back and be not the teacher. We want you to be supportive, and we want you to be encouraging. We want you to be loving with what they're engaging in, and just be proud of what they are accomplishing and not worry so much about what they're not getting done or what it's looking like at home, and letting the teacher know if it's a real problem so that they can help guide you through that. Like, there isn't any homework now.
Homework. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So again, we're here from a school point of view. You can reach out to me anytime. It doesn't have to be through this forum. If you have a question, or if you're really concerned, or if something's really bubbling up with your own family, with your own child's learning, please reach out to me, to your child's teachers, to Karen and John. Everybody in the school community is really, really committed to making this a positive experience for the families. And listening to feedback, it's been stressful for everybody. Like, you think that it's just stressful for the kids and the parents, but it's been really stressful for the staff and for the teachers. And everybody has just been doing a remarkable job of staying positive and looking at the bright side of things, and feeling really proud that we were able to come online and provide this for the community really quickly. And we have to keep reminding our teachers as well that it's only been 6 days. And so I think just everybody taking a big deep breath and putting that into perspective, and just be really proud of yourselves for how you're supporting your families, and letting them know that they're doing a great job, and that we're working really all together in this, and that we'll get through the other side.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not part of the faculty by any means, but if parents are struggling to kind of find that balance, or they're struggling to find, if they're struggling with kind of adjusting to what's going on, or they're seeing certain behaviors in their kids, or their kids are anxious, they just want some tips and some strategies, I'm also totally available. And I can certainly be reached. I can get maybe Eliana to send my email out if people want to reach out. It's not a problem as well.
All right. Well, all right. So if
in a few weeks then. No.
Yeah. And you can also feel free to suggest, like, through the PTA, if you have other ideas of speakers that you think that you're interested in hearing from. We've got really an abundance of talented people in our community, and I'm sure that there'd be lots of different kinds of topics and ideas that we can find other community representatives to come and speak to the PTA as well. So feel free to share your ideas with PTA at OJCS, and keep this. This is a really nice support system as well for you guys as parents to stay connected and engaged with. All right. Thank you so much for coming out. We hope you have a great evening, and good luck.
Thank you guys for doing this.
Thank you so much, Sharon and Lindsay. It was great. Very informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.